So good morning, everyone. I tried to go live on Facebook, and we got to get some more followers before we can do that, apparently. But I wanted to go through, as I promised, the genealogy line for the Baker Grubb family. As you know, we started out doing the Baker side first. And there's just a few things I'd like to go over that'll help you maybe understand it better. If you don't know anything about it, it can be quite confusing, especially when you're trying to figure out who's related to who. So, first thing you need to know is when you were born, you had two genealogy lines, one from your father and one from your mother. You know, we get half of our DNA from one parent, we get half of our DNA from the other. Your paternal line, when I say in my postings paternal or maternal lines, the paternal line here is the father, always. Maternal line is your mother or her side of the family, or your father and his side of the family. DNA, a lot of families like to do that. It's a DNA project so that they can prove and have conclusive proof that they are related to this family member or that family member, and so on and so forth. DNA is expensive. A lot of people don't go that route because the information is so readily available on genealogy websites, and you can do your own research. It takes time, but it's very, very rewarding. And if you choose to go the DNA route, which you can, DNA will either include or exclude a person. It'll either be 99.999 inclusion or 99.999 exclusion, which is why it's so accurate. And I'm not going to get into the intricacies of DNA right now because it's very complicated and hard to understand. But if you can just remember that you get half your DNA from one parent and you get half your DNA from another parent, then that's what it really comes down to in terms of genealogy. You're going to have lines on your mother's side, and you're going to have lines on your father's side. Some families do DNA testing to help them with genealogy research and accuracy. Paternity tests are done for the father, for dad, and mitochondrial DNA is done for mom. There's a little cell inside of DNA. It's a core cell. And every woman that has a child, that child, whether it's a boy or a girl, will have that mitochondrial DNA. That would be the maternal line. There's no father information in mitochondrial. That's why the paternity test is done for dad. Okay? So I'm going to leave this up here just for a second. I wish my phone were a little bit wider, but there's the information that you need to know going in. Okay? Now, I've got a dry erase board here. I thought this was probably the best way to do this. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they don't. Today they're not. So I'm going to just get the Windex. I'm just going to put this down just for a second because it wants to be stubborn. So, but Windex usually does the job pretty well. Okay. All right, perfect. And I'm going to put the phone back up so you can see what I'm doing. It did very well. So, we go. Now, if you are my first cousin on your mom or your dad's side, it does not matter. They just have to be brother and sister, okay? We're going to start with our parents. So, my dad is Steve, and I'm going to put his name here. Steve and siblings. Because I don't like to make public people's names that don't like it. I'm going to use first names for people that are still alive. Okay, so we go up, and genealogy charts are not fancy. They're really just football tees when you get down to it. And that's what I use. You can download the genealogy graphs online and just kind of print them out. They're real easy to get. When you're starting out, you need easy because it does get a little complicated. So here is my dad, Steve, and his siblings. This is his father's side, so I'm going to put an F here. And this is his mother's side. We're going to put an M here. Okay. All right, so Steve is here. His father is Charles T. Baker. So we're going to put Charles here. His mother is Rosa McLean, which is also my middle name, by the way. For the longest time, people thought I'd been married twice when I'd only been married once, because I have a surname for a middle name. Okay, so Rosa McLean. Great. All right. In here, we're going to start with Charles and his parents. So we're going to go up this way. Another T. Okay. His father is William, and it doesn't matter. Once you get this far into it, it doesn't matter which side, just as long as you know which side you're using for mom and which side you're using for dad. You can go on either side of the T. Let me go back. So if you ever see in genealogy a number like this in parentheses, that means that's the first generation that we're going from. Okay? Charles and Rosa, my grandparents, they're the second generation. Okay? So now we're going to fill in the grid for Charles. My great-grandmother, Susan. I don't know if you can see this. It's hard for me to write and hold the camera, but Susan Crawford. I'm not going to put her whole name in there because it get a little crowded. His father, William McIntosh. There's another William Baker. That's why I'm going to the trouble of putting McIntosh there. So now we're going to go up to this line right here. I'm actually going to try to put 4 generations. And if you count if I count myself, and I count my children down here at the bottom, then this is 1, 2, 3. This is 5 generations right here. And you can do the same thing with yours. Okay, so we're going with Susan over here and who her parents were. And we're going with William and who his parents were. So, William McIntosh was the son of Elizabeth Brooks. So, we're going to put Elizabeth Brooks here. And John Lindsay Baker Sr. So we're going to put John Lindsay Baker Sr. There he is. This is William McIntosh Baker's parents. Okay. Okay, let's go a little further. And as far as I've gotten on this line, I don't have a lot of information on John Lindsay Sr. right now. I'm working on it, but I got 2 sources, and they were kind of contradicting each other. There was a John Lindsay Jr. as well, and I'm wondering if some of them are talking about him. But I'm working that out right now, and we should be able to add that pretty soon. Okay, so we're going to go over to Elizabeth Brooks. I know who her parents were. I'll go up here, and boom. There's the T for her parents. Her mother was Nancy Coates. And her father was Allen V. Brooks. And he spelled his name A-L-E-N. Okay. And the T for John Lindsay is blank right now until I confirm a few things that I'm comfortable sharing with other people. I'm not really comfortable with the information I have right now. I've got to do more research on it. But over here, Susan Crawford, we're going to go and fill in hers. And her mother, I'm going to move this board. It's Sunday, y'all. I don't dress up. I don't put makeup on. I don't do anything. That's my free day. The last day of my vacation, so I wanted to get this done. Rosa, Etta. I'm not going to have room for McAllister. I write too big. But there's Rosa Etta McAllister is right there. She is the mother of my great-grandmother, Susan Frances Crawford. So I'm going to put 3. And now we're going to put 4 for over here. Okay. And John Alexander Crawford was her dad, J.A. Crawford. I'm going to write all this out for you so that you can make your own little genealogy chart. Sometimes they have them in family Bibles too. I found some information in family Bibles that helped me with my research. So they're a good source. Most people keep all their records in them, or they used to, back in the day especially. Okay. So John Alexander, let me go over here. But these are Rosa's parents. But who are John Alexander's parents? Well, up here, remember I told you there was another William? Well, it's his dad. William Alexander. So evidently he had his dad's middle name. And his mom, that's his father. And his mom was Esther McWilliam. She was Welch, actually. Or at least she had one parent that was. Okay. All right. They called Esther up here. I've seen in some papers that her nickname was Polly. Polly. Okay. So 3. This is 4. This is 5. And this is 6. 6 generations. That isn't counting your mother or your dad and their siblings, yourself, and your children. 6 plus 3 is 9. And if you have a great-grandchild, that's 10. So I went ahead and called it a 10-generation family. I have successfully trace the Crawford line, which is here, all the way back to Scotland and Ireland, where they came from. But that's only on her line, okay? When we get over to the other side and do more research and have the charts for it, we will find that this side of the family was not from Scotland or Ireland. This side of the family was German. So I'm excited to get into that. Hopefully be able to trace them all the way back to Germany. The problem with this side is, as we get back, they're not as old a family as what the Crawfords were. The Bakers are not. So there's a migration, and I think that's why I'm having the trouble right here. I need to check some immigration records, if they exist, because this was the time about World War I was right in here. You know, sometimes records get destroyed during wars. I hope that's not the case. But be proud of your family. Be proud of your heritage. I have not found anything bad about any of these people at all in the research. They were good, hardworking people, salt of the earth. They loved their God, they loved their family, and they loved their country, their new country in some cases. They seem to be happy. They seem to be involved in the community, especially the churches, which is where, you know, everyone gathered at the churches. That's where that action, the activity happened. Because Abbeville, South Carolina was a very rural area during their lifetime. The church was the gathering place for everybody. So that's the importance of churches is, of course, is God's house. But also, it was a place where everybody come together for life events, marriages, christenings, funerals, and some such. So it was very important in their lives. I do have a little note, and I debated on whether I would say this or not, but I want to say it because it's true, and I don't believe the truth would be treason against anybody. I asked my grandmother, right here, Rosa McLean Grubb, about her mother-in-law, Susan, at one point. They called her Fanny. That was her nickname. And the only reply I got was, I didn't care for her. I'd never heard my grandma say that about anybody, so I don't know what was going on there, but I have heard that she could be quite stringent. She could be very uptight. She could be very, lack a lot of understanding. She didn't go out of her way to try to understand other people. It was her way, more or less. Is that true? I don't know. I feel like, as far as my grandmother's concerned, I don't think she ever told a lie in her life. So, you know, maybe it was the daughter-in-law, mother-in-law's situation going there. Maybe they bumped heads, because my grandmother, she could be quite stringent too. So, I don't know, but we do know that Susan and William McIntosh Baker grew old together and died within years of each other. William McIntosh Baker actually stayed in the home of my grandparents, Rosa Grubb and Charles Baker, after his wife died. Susan died before he did. So he stayed in their home in Greensboro. That's why it says Greensboro on the genealogy as where he died. That's where they were living at the time. This would have been in the 1930s. And like them, like me, they brought their dad in. Actually, my grandma's father-in-law, but Charles C. Baker brought Daddy into his home, and Daddy stayed there until he died. So he lived with both of them. And the story about him is that he would call my grandmother if he needed something, you know, like call out to her. And she would just laugh telling the story, but he would go, Wozina, because he had that South Carolina brogue, and it kind of made him talk a little bit. He couldn't say his R's very well, so he pronounced R's as W's, and it was like Wozina. And they said he was just an adorable man. He died before my dad was born. My dad was born in 1947. He died in the 1930s, so my dad never got to know him, but he heard the stories about him. Okay, well, this is a very rainy afternoon, and I will be updating you on everyone. Here's the chart. I'm going to move this. I'm sitting in front of a window, and it's raining cats and dogs, but here's the chart with the generations numbered on them. If there are any questions, if anybody has any questions, just tell me in the comments. Tell me if it was very confusing for you. and we'll make it better, promise you. But everyone should know who their family was and who their family came from. Have a blessed Sunday, and I'll be talking to you on Facebook. Bye.